So that street violence then turned into a full-blown revolution called the July Revolution. And once again, I've highlighted here that the winner in this was Louis Philippe. And it indicates to us that even in 1813, there wasn't a stomach for an elected executive. That, like 1689 in England, the prejudice still existed that the crown needed to stay inside the family. The Orleanists were Bourbons, right? They weren't direct descendants of Louis XIV, but they were direct descendants of Louis XIII. So Louis Philippe took the throne of France after or during the July Revolution, and he styled himself the Citizen King. Now, this is a remarkably contradictory term, because a citizen means that everyone's equal. A king means someone is above. So he puts these two words together in order to try to bridge the gap between popular sovereignty and divine right. He is certainly making a claim to the throne based upon his family heritage, but he's also making a claim to the throne that the people like him more, and that he's not going to do anything that the people don't like. So he's going to try to please both God and man at the same time. He says he's going to follow a just milieu, a middle road. He's not going to go too far to the left. He's not going to go to the right. He's going to be a moderate. And so one of the things he did was expanded suffrage, right? He expanded suffrage from 900,000 to 170,000 voters. Now, remember, there are millions of people in France. This is nowhere near creating a democracy. But what it does do is it brings in and creates more support for this revolution, right? That this is not a mob, right? The mob may have inspired the change, but he's going to ask people of property to vote and support this change. And by going from 90 to 170,000 people, men, he's creating a broader base of support that, okay, he's doing something in favor of citizens and not just kings. So where is his legitimacy resting then? His legitimacy rests because he inherits the throne as a Bourbon, as an Orleanist, and he has popular support. So what does this tell us about hereditary monarchies? Are they necessary, right? And the clear answer to that is yes, right? They're not just picking someone out of the blue. Even in France, right, the heart of revolutionary Europe, there is still a preference for the monarch, the executive, to pass from one person to another. We've already seen this in England, right? In England with the Glorious Revolution, they did not just pick anybody out of a hat. They turned to William and Mary, who were stewards. In the 19th century, the idea of hereditary power persisted. What's new is this idea of popular sovereignty. Right? There is no doubt in anybody's mind that the people right? The people who took to the streets ran Charles off. And there's no doubt in anybody's mind that Louis Philippe made an appeal, a direct appeal for the masses to calm down and give him a chance. And they did. They were willing to give this new family member a try. One of the reasons they were willing to give him a try because his family had a reputation for supporting popular issues. So they gave him a break. He sits on the throne. He appoints as his prime minister Francois Guizot, and Guizot then represents the liberal aspects of Louis Philippe's reign. Guizot was asked, well, why stop at 170? Why not go more? Why not give a right to vote? And Guizot answered, well, work hard, get rich, and then you can vote. Because this was the 19th century liberal idea of voting, that people worthy, right? They had to earn voting. Voting was not something that everybody could do. It was also a very liberal idea of saying that, you know, if you work hard, you can get rich. And if you can't get rich, then you can vote. Because the state had removed obstacles to moving up the social ladder, right? Aristocratic positions were no longer hereditary. It was based on merit, right? This is a meritocracy. You could say to yourself, then that's kind of naive, don't you think? Yeah. But then Guizot turned around and created a public education system, a compulsory system of public education that provided opportunities or ladders for individuals to improve themselves, both intellectually, right, through the mind, and manually through the hands. So what did this education system look like? Well, every village needed to have a school so that all children could get a secular education. They could learn the French language, they could learn the basics of arithmetic. They can learn to read, they can learn to write, they can learn to work with figures. Every departmental city would have a vocational school to teach a trade. Carpentry, blacksmith. Right? These vocations had earlier been controlled by guilds, and those guilds limited access to them, mainly to relatives or friends. Guizot's system of public education is open to everyone, and people advance or fall based upon merit. Departments would also have a normal school. Normal schools are teacher colleges. Because if each village is going to have a public school, it needs to have a teacher, and those teachers need to be trained by the state, not by the church. In other words, well, you know, Guizot lays a hard line at where suffrage was. Right? He wasn't just going to randomly expand suffrage, but if people could use the tools provided to them, right, the opportunities provided to them by the state, and they, through their own hard work, they get rich, they qualify to vote, they were not going to be restricted because of who their parents were, who their grandparents were. Their only restriction was their own personal ability and how hard they were willing to work for it. merit provided the avenue for political participation. This seems hopeful. And it is that hope that allows Louis Philippe to sit on the throne from 1830 to 1848.